Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Maryville Saints Hockey Network season preview. I'm Andrew Marsh alongside Todd Panula. We're going to talk about, well, the Saints and their 2022-2023 campaign. It's going to be a fun one this season, Todd. I'm excited. Are you excited?
Yeah, I'm always excited.
Yeah, well, you look excited.
I'm pumped.
Let's go!
But, yeah, Marsh, it should be a really good season coming up. Maryville had a strong showing last year. They're making incremental steps, not shooting for the moon, but they're still striving to make those steps each and every time out on the ice. Lost a few players. We'll talk about that here in a moment. Gained some players. We'll talk about that as well. So it'll be an interesting mixture of new and former talent on these teams.
Yeah, I'm excited for this entire year. Last year was a great season. Of course, they did not get the job done in the national tournament, but that's okay. That's why you come back, you recharge the batteries, and you get back at it, and we're excited to see how things play out starting here in a couple of weeks. So let's get right to it. You mentioned some of the guys that we will not see back this season. Let's start off with one of the leading goal getters in Anthony Stavro, and he's going to be missed for sure.
Yeah, Stav's always managed to seem to come up with that big goal right when you needed it. Whether it was a game-winning situation, power play situation. He was just always a big-time scorer. Missed a few games here and there, but he did play in 30 last season, came up with 19 goals, 37 points, so a solid season, and one of those team leaders in the locker room as well, and that can't be discounted.
Yeah, another one of those leaders is Brad Boudreau, who also played in 30 games last season. He had 12 goals for 34 points last season. And he was one of those workhorses that you would see on both sides of the ice.
Yeah, he was one of those guys that, he was just built like a collegiate hockey player you would expect.
Yeah.
I mean, he would just go into the corners and bulldoze people. He was a physical player, but he still had that skill. He wasn't like somebody you would just pigeonhole into a fourth-line role. He could play in the middle six every now and then, fill in a top-three role if he needed to, and he would get the job done.
Yeah, Brad Boudreau, a big body. Let's talk about some speed that the Saints will miss next season. Christian Alvegren.
Yeah, Alvegren, again, 29 games played. Didn't necessarily have the scoring pace that he would have liked compared to his previous season, 7 goals, 15 points overall. But, again, one of those locker room leaders. And when he was healthy, when he was on top of his game, he was a guy that you could count on for those timely goals as well.
And we talk about the captain, Jack Harrison. Not only is he the one that wears the C, but, he galvanizes the group. However, there are a bunch of other guys that pitch in and do their job, even if they're not wearing a letter. Of course, some of these guys, they were, and they're going to be missed. It's simple as that. Yeah,
when you've got guys that have been with the program either from the start or year 2, year 3, as you build up through things, they're guys that you count on to kind of usher in the new crowd, to kind of see everybody that they're doing their thing out on the ice, shift after shift, in practices, in the classroom, what have you. And it's good that Maryville still has somebody like Jack Harrison that can kind of usher in this new crowd. But when you lose 3 players of that caliber who were not only guys that you counted on the ice, but off the ice as well, that's kind of a big hole that Coach Hogan's going to have to figure out who's going to take up those roles.
Well, why don't we talk about some of those guys that we think will fill those roles this upcoming season. We have some fresh faces coming here to Chesterfield, Missouri at the Maryville University Hockey Center. They will don the Maryville sweater. And we'll start off with Cameron Ware from the Dryden Ice Dogs, Todd.
Yeah, Cameron Ware's going to be an exciting player coming up this season. He's somewhat unlike anybody that Maryville's ever had before. He's a big, powerful left wing that loves to hit and score goals. He comes in at 6'6", but he still has a lot of skating ability as well. Leadership abilities are off the charts according to just about every coach that he's ever had. So perhaps he's a player that can kind of fill in for some of those players that have been lost. And he's going to be an instant fan favorite with Saints Nation because he likes to mix it up in the corner. That's going to help replace some of the stuff you lost with Brad Boudreau. He's incredible at deflecting the puck, and he's just going to be a workhorse out there for the Saints.
Yeah, fans love those guys who can lay the body, yet put the puck in the back of the net as well. We'll go to our next guy in Sam Edwards. Sam Edwards is from the Ottawa Junior Senators, and he is a centerman, a gritty centerman, but he's also got some skill. And like you said about our last guy, Cameron Ware, always looking for the battle in the corners. He's winning those loose puck battles, and he is a 2021-2022 Bogart Cup champion, the top team in the CCHL, and that's one of the best leagues in Canada, Todd. So you look at one of those leagues, you're bringing in a guy, one of the best teams in that league. It's got to make you happy.
Yeah, and beyond just the skill that he's going to bring, similar to Ware, a lot of these players that Coach Hogan is bringing in fit the mentality of the Maryville program. They're gritty players. They're workhorse players. They're going to go out there shift after shift and battle for the puck, and then they're going to show some skill as well with some dangles and just ability to kind of be shifty on the ice as well.
Well, Todd, we got another player. We got a few more players that we want to go over. Who do we got next?
Jackson Zlotti is an interesting player, bringing in some talent to the Maryville program. He comes in transferring from the Iowa State Cyclones. Zlotti's got a wicked shot, and he's going to compete every second of every shift. Again, kind of bringing that mentality of toughness that Coach Hogan wants. He blocks shots. He's going to take hits to make plays. He plays a physical style, but also has high-end skill as well. The Calgary, Alberta native was top 3 in points for the Cyclones, and they made it into the second round of the national tournament, and he was a key player for them last year. So coming over to help out the Saints is going to be a big move for him as he continues to try to build his ACHA career. After a solid junior career, having played with the Calgary Canucks, the Prince George Spruce Kings, and the Swan Valley Stampeders. And again, he brings in quality experience and leadership abilities from his time both with the junior ranks and the Cyclones as well.
Yeah, and it's great for the Saints to pick up a guy like that. Of course, Iowa State, for those that might not know, they will not be playing next season. So for him to continue his hockey career right here in Chesterfield is great for not only him but for this team as well. Looking at our next player on the back end, which we know has been solidified as one of the best in the ACHA, and it's only going to get better. Colt Corpse. He's coming from Albertus Magnus, the Falcons, a D3 NCAA team. He is a transfer student as well. He played in some of the best junior hockey leagues in North America. He's a big, strong shutdown defenseman. He closes gaps well, and he moves the puck north, which is exactly what you want to see, especially in his own zone. And he really will solidify this back end for the Dawgs this season. I'm excited to see what this guy can bring. He was a Kingston Frontenac's draft pick of the OHL. So this guy, he's got what it takes to be on this team, and he's got the mold of what you would like to see as a defenseman for the Dawgs.
Yeah, having played D3 NCAA hockey prior to this season, he's got that experience. He's played against high-level opponents, so he's not going to be a player that you're going to have to worry about on the back end, or whether he's just going to get blown by or he's not going to understand game situations. Obviously, an OHL team drafting him as well. He's highly thought of from around North America.
We mentioned one Cyclone. Let's move on to the next Cyclone, Todd. Who do we have?
Another transfer coming over due to the situation with the Cyclones not playing this year. Chad McElwain. He comes in having played against Maryville last season, so he's an opponent, now a teammate that the Saints are going to know very well. Former captain for the SJHL. The L'Orange Ice Wolves, who have given a lot of products now to the Saints program over the last few seasons. McElwain played in the top 6 for the Cyclones last year. Relentless on pucks. He plays in all situations. He's got a great hockey IQ. He's physical. He drives to the net very hard, and he is going to be a pest to play against. And again, that's going to really set well with the Maryville Saints fans, because they love those kind of players that are kind of just needle you a little bit, get under your skin, draw some penalties.
Exactly, and he loves going to the front of the net. That is huge for this team. Get bodies in front. We have great shots from the point. You get those pucks through, and pucks will go in the back of the net. The next guy, Tyler Shermer, is our next Maryville Saint to join the squad. He's coming from the Minnesota Blue Ox of the USPHL Premier League. He's an extremely hard worker, Todd, and he's responsible in all 3 zones, which is important for this team, especially in the defensive zone, because we see what this team can do on offense. He's tenacious on pucks, and he finishes every check. That will bode well in the locker room, and he works hard at being the best player on the ice. He wants to be the best player on the ice at all times. And he's really using his size to clog up the slot. He both plays the penalty kill and the power play, and he loves to block shots, and that is exactly what this team loves. If you're not blocking shots, Todd, you're not playing.
Yeah, we talked about the leadership abilities. That's exactly what the captain of the Saints does all the time. Just about every shift seems like he's going to have 2 or 3 bruises on his legs from getting a blocked shot, Jack Harrison, that is. And I think Shermer's going to be a similar player, looking at his highlights. He's a player, obviously he has no puck fear at all because he goes to the front of the net on offense, blocks the shots on defense. So he almost is like got a goaltender mentality where maybe there's a screw loose or something. Yeah. But every now and then you need a guy like that that's going to, as you said, Marshy, clog up those lanes defensively, do the same offensively, mess up the vision of the goaltenders, and that just makes it that much more difficult to play against this Maryville team when you've got a guy that has that mentality.
Well, from the same league but a different team, we have Felix Turcotte joining the squad. What do you have on him, Todd?
Turcotte is another forward for the Pueblo Bulls of the USPHL Premier. As you mentioned, a good skating forward who back checks just as hard as he gets in on the forecheck. So he's going to be a good 200-foot player. He loves to get the greasy goals in the slot. He protects the puck very well. Great guy in the locker room, so he should fit in with the Saints very well, despite coming in from the junior ranks. And he's just another player that's going to give the Dawgs depth and flexibility, as he's another one, Marshy, that's going to be able to be utilized in all situations.
Yeah, Todd, this team, they have a ton of different characters. So when you have a guy that can come right in and gel, especially in that locker room, that's going to fit really well. You have a ton of young guys. Of course, we just talked about the older guys. They're moving on out now. You have a bunch of young guys, and we'll see how these guys kind of, mix and match within the locker room and whatnot. We have our schedule release video. If you have not seen that, go watch it. We'll talk about their matchup with UCO, who they just won the national championship last year. So it's going to be a tough test on the road. That'll be a great time for all of these guys to sort of get to know each other a little bit more than just from training camp and whatnot. So, but yes, love guys that are big in the locker room. They're called glue guys, Todd, the big glue guys. Our next guy is Tyson Moore from the Cochrane Crunch from the NOJHL. And Tyson, he's a small forward, and he's just about a point-per-game type player, which is huge. It doesn't matter how you're getting it done, but if you're getting it done at least once a game, that's big. So last season in the NOJHL, and we're all excited to see what he can bring to this squad. I mean, Todd, we have a lot of players that, they throw the body around and, they get to the greasy spots. But if you have a guy that can put up a point per game, that's massive for this team.
Yeah, to kind of borrow a football phrase, you have the lightning and the thunder. And obviously Moore is going to be more of a lightning player to where he's going to utilize his quickness. He's a very shifty player out on the ice. He's got that. Sometimes you need those kind of smaller players that can just kind of slip their way through holes that the bigger guys just can't do because it's easier to check them. There's more body to check. But Moore is going to be one of those players, and we've seen that with various forwards here at Maryville in the past, to where he's going to be very shifty. He's a good change of pace player. He can stop on a dime, go back the other direction, create space for himself. And when you've got somebody that can handle the puck like he can, that's going to create space for other guys because all of a sudden somebody's worried about where's the quick player going. Well, now I've just lost the guy that's over there in the corner. You go tic-tac-toe, and there, boom, you've got a goal for Maryville.
Yeah, so we're all excited to see how these newcomers do this upcoming season. But, Todd, let's go over some of the guys that are coming back to the team this year. A lot of young guys, like I said before. And we'll start off with one of the bigger guys on the team, Ed Coffey. Ed Coffey, I mean, my goodness, was he unbelievable last year.
Yeah, I mean, he solidified himself basically as the number one. They would still kind of try to stretch playing time throughout the season to other guys, but Ed Coffey really started to kind of put the clamps down on that number one spot for Maryville last season. He was honored as the team MVP for the 21-22 season as well, and gained a spot on first-team all-conference roster last year. So he was a big part in Maryville having such success last season. Coffey finished with a record of 11-6-0, a 2.03 goals against, and a .924 save percentage in the regular season. And again, just like the team did, he didn't necessarily have his best game against Iowa State. At least he would say so. He was a reason why it stayed as close as it did for quite a while. But anytime a goaltender picks up a loss, they're not going to be happy with their performance. But I kind of like that. That puts a little bit of a chip on your shoulder going into this year. And he's going to be another force to be reckoned with because he's really kind of solidified that goaltending spot for Maryville.
Yeah, he's been fantastic. And so have the guys in front of him as well. Let's go over the defense. We talked a little bit about them at the beginning of the video, but let's look at these guys in depth. The defense core, I mean, they're solid from top to bottom, Todd. You got sophomores Jackson White, Timon Prexler, and Garrett Hunter. They're really looking to build on their strong freshman campaign. Of course, you have Ben MacArthur as well, who's a junior defenseman. He really improved every game last season. You could see the coaching staff see that in him. He radiated confidence in his play, and they have a ton of confidence in him as well. And then, of course, let's not forget about Cole Bonnet as well from Medicine Hat, Alberta. And Bonnet, he'll continue to be tough to play against and just be an absolute warrior, blocking shots. I mean, that's the whole key to this team is blocking shots, laying the body out on the line. Because like I said before, and it's not from the words of my mouth, it's from Coach Hogan, if you don't block shots, you're not playing.
Yeah, and he's reinforced that mentality throughout the team, forwards, defense, especially on defense. They want guys getting in those lanes, sacrificing themselves for the goaltenders so that your goaltenders are only making the saves that just kind of happen to trickle through or maybe a spectacular save here or there, but they want the defense to be that first line of defense, no pun intended. But, again, you've got an interesting mix with this group that's coming back for Maryville. Different styles, different sizes. Timon Prexler was a player that, I mean, he just put the puck on a string at times, sometimes to the chagrin of his coach, who wished he would pass it off a little bit quicker. So we'll see how he progresses in year two in his Saints career. But again, top to bottom, that defensive core, as you said, Marsh, he just looks really solid.
Well, let's look at the offensive core. You mentioned Timon Prexler, his brother TJ coming back as well. Sort of a down year. Let's see what we got with the forwards.
Yeah, TJ Prexler and Lucas Adams are going to be two players that lead the charge and step up to fill in the skates offensively left behind by last year's senior class. Consistency is going to need to be the key for those returning members of this squad, such as Prexler and Adams. And sophomore Luke McLeod, who is a lot like Ben MacArthur, improved every time he was on the ice last season. Hopefully a full and healthy offseason is going to leave the New York native ready to go for the Dawgs coming up. Will Smith, Jake Chartier, and senior captain Jack Harrison look to be the glue that creates what this team has this year, which is going to be its depth. Those three players are leaders in the dressing room, and obviously, as we've mentioned, for the new players as well as those returning, those guys can play in just about every situation, whether it's penalty kill, 5-on-5, power play, just about all.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing Lucas Adams build upon his game from last season. He was an absolute weapon out there for the Saints. And it looks like they're going to be playing against some new opponents this year, of course. They have some familiar foes on the schedule. Once again, go check out the schedule reveal video on our page, Maryville Saints Hockey Network YouTube page. But Todd, different conference now. We're in the CSCHL.
That's going to roll off the tongue during games,
it's easy to say. It's so easy. Let's look at some of these teams, though. Illinois, we saw them last season. Of course, the Saints swept them. Mind you, it was not an easy sweep by any means, but another tough opponent that we'll see throughout the rest of the year.
Yeah, it was one of those things. We talked about it before. Sometimes you get those Friday games that end up being a little easier than you thought. I think that it's going to be the same on Saturday. I think that's what they ran into with Illinois because they had the better of the Illini in that first game. Much tougher opponent the next night over when the Illini were ready. They weren't bus tired and all that kind of stuff. But coming in, Illinois is going to be refreshed. They've got their recruiting done. They had that weird situation with COVID to where they couldn't really do it. They didn't have any games the season prior to last year. Didn't really have too much of a chance to do any recruiting. They've had a full normal offseason. So they're going to be looking to get back on top of things with some new conference opponents, and we'll see how things shake out. And that should be a really good test for Maryville as a conference team.
Yeah, and the Illini, they finished their year off with a 20-16-1-0 record. So they know how to win, and we're looking forward to seeing them play right here at the Maryville University Hockey Center. Let's move on to the next team a part of this conference, and that's the Ohio Bobcats, a team that we saw here a few years ago, and a team that went to the quarterfinal last year in the national tournament before losing to Adrian. Another tough opponent, Todd.
Yeah, and they're one of those teams that they're not necessarily always expected to win everything, but they're going to be in the mix every single year. And as you said, they made the quarterfinals last season. They had somewhat of a down year the year prior, by their standards anyway, but they were still in the mix, just like they're going to be this year as well. So that's going to be a good test for Maryville, as all these conference opponents are. There's really not going to be a weekend on the schedule from the conference standpoint where you can kind of circle and be like, those are some easy wins. We can look on to the next one. So Ohio's another tough team to play against, and that's kind of the purpose of this conference move, was to get quality opponents every single weekend so that your players can't have that mental break and they need to be focused every time out.
Yeah, and the CSCHL is arguably one of the best conferences in ACHA. So the Saints are in good hands in terms of their strength of schedule, the teams they're playing. That will prepare them for the national tournament. This will be the first time that the Saints play the Ohio Bobcats. They'll play them 4 times throughout the year, 2 games at home, 2 games on the road. So we're excited to see them. Lindenwood, let's talk about them. They are no longer in this conference. They make the jump to the NCAA. Of course, they were the national champions last season as they won on their home ice. But the Saints will not see them this year, at least the team that won the national championship last year.
Right. Most of those players made the move up to the Division I ranks, which was kind of the deal when they made a lot of those recruiting visits, was come play. We're going to be in the ACHA for a year or 2, depending on what player it was. We're going to make the jump after that. So that program makes the jump. Maryville still is going to have a couple games here and there against the ACHA version of the Lindenwood Lions, but not a conference matchup. But it's still a game against the Lindenwood, the program. It's still games against what has become somewhat of a rivalry just from the closeness of the 2 schools. So there's still going to be some chances to get those little jabs in against Lindenwood fans, hopefully, if Maryville can pull off some wins. It just won't necessarily be in the conference setting this year. Yeah.
So let's move on to our next team, Iowa State. We mentioned them earlier in the video. That's why there's 2 guys from their squad heading to the Saints. They will be serving a suspension for this upcoming year, so we will not see them this season either.
Yeah, kind of an interesting situation up there. Don't want to go too in-depth about it. People can research that if they wish to, because it's kind of a he said, she said type of deal. But just from the overall standpoint, it's kind of benefited Maryville. As you mentioned, they've got the transfers in from Iowa State, quality players coming over that were very difficult for Maryville to deal with last year. So it benefits the Saints in that aspect. But from the conference standpoint, it's a little bit disappointing not to have that red and yellow team to face off against a few times this year.
Yeah, Todd, it's going to be disappointing not seeing them, take the ice against the Saints. But it is nice seeing that 2 of their former players are heading over this way, and we'll gladly take them and have them on this team moving forward. But looking at this conference in general, next season could be expanded, or there could be a realignment. So that makes this season even more important. I mentioned earlier the strength of schedule. Of course, that can help for the national tournament. But it could also prepare you for next season as well, with some even harder teams that could join this conference.
Right. It's almost kind of a college football scenario with all the upheaval in the conferences over there. And you don't know who your opponent is going to be one year to the next. So hopefully the CHL ends up being kind of a stable league for Maryville going forward, because they've got a good core group of teams. As we mentioned, Maryville's going to be one of those teams. You've still got Illinois, you've still got the Bobcats of Ohio, and a few other teams that didn't necessarily make the schedule. But top to bottom, it is still one of the better teams throughout the ACHA. And I think they're in a good position if they want to add teams coming up next season, you kind of try to figure out what the Iowa State situation is like. Maybe they get re-invited back. Maybe you bring in some other teams. Perhaps a Lindenwood return if they kind of decide not to be an independent at the ACH level. Minot State and Indiana Tech are out there as well. We've seen them at the national tournament a couple years ago right here at the Maryville University Hockey Center. They're teams that are going to be tough as well. And from a conference standpoint, I think that's why Maryville joined this new conference. They want to have tough games every single weekend. So Coach Hogan would definitely be in favor of just about any of those teams joining this league in the future.
I completely agree. Where do you think Maryville, throughout all these teams that we just listed, the ones that will be playing this upcoming season, where do you see them fitting in terms of games won and just overall play? Because me personally, I think they're up there with all of them.
Yeah, it's going to be a big question throughout the year. On paper, I think that they're just about on the level of a team like the Bobcats. I think they're slightly ahead of the Illini.
I agree. Yep.
So, but that's based on results that we've seen from the past. It's going to be dependent on a lot of these players that they've brought in, but that's kind of the way it is for a lot of these schools. Illinois has a decent recruiting class that came in, as does the University of Ohio. So who gets the best mix out of those new players that have come in? Who gets off to the best start? That's going to be a big key, and who finishes off with a better record. But I think Maryville has already shown, based on what they've done in the past, who they've brought in, the kind of quality of player that they've brought in, that they're going to be a team to be reckoned with. They're going to be right up there in the top tier.
I couldn't agree more. What does this team have to do to be successful? You mentioned all these new players coming in. We'll see if they can gel well. I think they will. This is a great program. Not only do we have a ton of great players on the ice, but a lot off the ice as well, and that is where the recruiting starts and finishes. So what does this team have to do to have a successful season?
It's kind of a little bit of an understatement, but they basically just have to play Maryville hockey.
Yeah.
If they go out and play the kind of way that Coach Hogan wants this team to play, and he has instituted that kind of style right from the beginning, then they're going to be successful, because it's based on simple factors within the game of hockey. You get good goaltending. Maryville has been known for good goaltenders from their inception. You get solid defending, good positional play from their defenders, making the smart play, getting the puck out when you have the opportunity, physicality. We talked about the shot blocking from these teams. It's almost a situation where Maryville, they have the skill to compete with just about anybody, but especially with some of these new players, if they play up to their standards, they have the tenacity to outwork anybody as well. And I think that that's just as important when you play against some of these teams that are maybe going to be just a little bit faster, maybe have just a tiny bit more skill. But if you can outwork them consistently game after game, you're going to rack up those victories. I
agree. And, when they do that, their game will build, and you'll see that difference come the end of the season. So it should be a fun one here at the Maryville University Hockey Center. If there's one player, Todd, that you think is going to have a breakout year, who's it going to be and why? I'll let you think about it. I'll go first. I think there's a ton of great players on this list, but I think Lucas Adams is the guy. I think he's going to lead this team in goals this upcoming year. We saw the kind of talent that he had last season, and moving to his second year, he's a sophomore, he's building his game. I think he's going to have a terrific season.
Yeah, and that's an excellent pick. I think Adams, as you mentioned, is poised for something big.
I stole your pick, didn't I?
No, not at all.
Okay.
You picked a returning player. I'm going to go with a new face. I'm going to go with Cameron Ware, just because I think he's so different than anything that we've seen with Maryville in before. We've seen guys that have the height on this program before, but they were still kind of a little more of a lumbering player, using their reach and what have you. Cameron Ware basically has the speed of somebody who's a lot smaller than him, but he's as big as Ed Coffey.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's just going to be something different for these opponents to try to deal with. He comes in, as I mentioned during the preview for him, big, powerful left wing, and he's just going to be somebody who's got that motor. He's going to keep going, and he's got the speed to burn. He's going to have that reach. He's just going to be a different style of player for Maryville that's going to throw a good change of pace out there. And it's going to be tough for opponents to deal with somebody with that kind of size.
Well, folks, it should be a really fun season here at the Maryville University Hockey Center. New faces, old faces. However, they all wear the same jersey, the same crest, and they represent Maryville University. I'm Andrew Marsh. That's Todd Panula. Todd, what's the record this year? Are they winning the national championship? Don't answer that. They're going undefeated, national champions. We're calling it right now. Even if they don't, we still love them. It should be a fun one. Everybody, thank you for watching the season preview video of the Maryville Saints. If you want to follow the Saints on all social media, go to Twitter, Instagram, all that good stuff, at Maryville Hockey. Go to the Maryville Saints Hockey Network, which you're watching right now. Check out the games if you can't come to the arena. We look forward to seeing you this upcoming season. Once again, everyone, enjoy the rest of your summer. We'll see you here in a few weeks.